Hello everyone, this is Jason with Earl of Five Games, and I was wanting to go over something with the Heroes and Hardships core rulebook rules. There was some questions about um, the step 5 in the combat process, and that is how some wounds will get applied versus your wound threshold. Okay. So in this scenario, we have Nero fighting a mutant scav sniper. Nero already has 2 wounds, so technically he cannot take any more wounds hardships in this fight. Obviously, he is his wound hardships give him a penalty dice each. And any injuries would be -3. So if we're at step 5 in the process, if you're looking at your core rulebook on step 5, I believe it is page, and we'll tell you in just 1 second what page it is. It's page 78. Okay, we're at step 5. So let's say Nero takes another wound. He takes another wound. He already has 2 wound hardships, and we look at his wound threshold of 2. So we know he immediately needs to make a death roll. Okay, so he makes a death roll, and let's say he succeeds. So he succeeds his death roll, which is it's a resilience skill check plus his wound level with no modifications for wound hardships or injuries. And it just needs to beat the TSV of the damage that he took, the attack. He succeeds in this case, so what's next? So if he makes a death roll and he succeeded, okay? So since he cannot take another wound hardship, he takes an injury, okay? That's the first thing. So instead of wound hardship, he takes an injury, okay? So he has an injury here. Now, the problem is that he still does take a wound. Okay, we would come down here. This one would already be filled. Wound number 1, and then this would be wound number 2. So this wound, although he doesn't take a wound hardship, he does actually take the wound that he suffered. So wound 3. And let's just say the level of success was 20. It was to the head, whatever. So he does take this wound, and then later on, we will go and we will see what kind of effects this wound has had. And then after that, he would make a falter roll, and that would be the end after the falter roll. Either he succeeds and he keeps going, or he fails and he passes out. Regardless, now he has 2 wound hardships, an injury, and 3 wounds. Okay, and that's the way it'll stay. If he would get hit again and take another wound, he would, we would do a death roll. If he succeeded, he would take an injury instead of a wound hardship, but he would take another wound down here, wound 4. Let's say it's 25. And then so these wounds can stack up. So in combat, the way it's working is, just so you know if you're not aware, is these wounds down here, if they're suffered in this combat, which they are in this example, you don't start applying the wound effects baseline. So there's an optional rule to do that immediately. If you do that, then you do not have wound hardships. So you have one or the other. So you're not going to have where you're double nerfing the character with 2 different penalties. Wound effects that come directly from wounds usually lower your attributes. So that's what would happen. One might lower your strength. One might lower something else. Maybe it won't even have anything to do with combat, like you're hit and it's like communication or something, or presence. You get hit in the face and it made you uglier. So it's possible. It's a little bit more granular. It takes a little bit of time to figure out what those effects are. So that's an optional rule to do that, while wound threshold and wound hardships basically are an easy way to simulate those injuries and wounds in combat, where it doesn't take a long time to figure out what you're doing. Obviously, at this point, if he takes another wound and somehow he passes his death roll, remember death rolls are not injuries and wounds, right? They don't get applied to them. So he would not ever go up in a wound or a wound hardship. He would get an injury instead, and he would get another wound down here. Okay, but he would never suffer any more wound hardships. I hope that makes sense for this part. This is like the step 5, the very end of the check, if you will, from the wound and injury summary flowchart on page 78 in the core rulebook. And I hope that helps and makes some sense. And if you've got any questions, just feel free to let me know. Thank you.